Noobs Radio. My name's Eric Newby, as always, joined by my co-host, David Newberry. David, how are you?
Great, Eric. How about you?
I'm doing great.
Good.
It's a beautiful day here in Vancouver. Just sitting here, and we figured, hey, we're not doing anything. Let's do a podcast.
Let's start a podcast.
Yeah. Well, David, maybe you can just enlighten our listeners a little bit about what Noobs Radio is.
What to expect from Noobs Radio. Well, this is the first ever episode of Noobs Radio, and we draw some pop culture maps to try to connect things back to themselves by going as far away as possible. Ah. So it's like the 6 degrees of separation, but instead of connecting one thing to another thing, you're connecting it to itself.
Eventually.
In
a long, usually pointless journey, to be honest. It's a lot of fun facts and a lot of useless knowledge. We've spent a lot of time reading liner notes. Yeah. Which everyone should do. But we're just going to kind of give you the Coles Notes version of those liner notes, and hopefully it's entertaining somehow.
So welcome to NewbsRadio.com.
/ Awesome.
So today, we are going from Altamont to Altamont, with all stops in between. Altamont, of course, being the massive and eventually disastrous concert that symbolically ended the 60s in December of 1969.
Now, do you think if it had happened in 61, would the 60s have ended
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. They just would have jumped
Skipped.
right to 1970.
I think so, too.
Absolutely. I guess that's what it is. Should we do a call to action?
Okay, let's do a call to action. Terry?
You can visit Noobs Radio everywhere on the internet at NewbsRadio.com and on Twitter at Noobs Radio.
Exactly, yes, at Noobs Radio. @ Noobs Radio. In case you don't know Twitter, it has to be an @.
@ Noobs Radio. # awesome.
Oh, so that should be like, that should be this little song. What Noobs knows.
Noobs knows.
A little star shooting across the screen. The more you know. Yeah, so 69, December 6th is that what you said? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I thought. And yeah, it's just disastrous ending to the 60s.
Total
meltdown. Now, do you think it was whose fault?
It was a comedy of errors.
Yeah.
They had planned on having it. They were looking to do a Woodstock of the West, they called it. They planned on having it in a stadium, and then that fell through. And then they were going to have it in Golden Gate Park. And that fell through 2 days before. So on December 4th, they decided to have it at Altamont Speedway north of San Francisco. So you can imagine taking a place that's not designed for concerts and turning it into a space where 300,000 people are going to be there for a concert in 2 days. In terms of washrooms and security and hot dog vendors and all of those kind of things. Mm-hmm. So it was going bad from the beginning, and then they encountered trouble because the stage was only 39 inches tall, and there was no barrier between the audience and the stage. The security company took one look at the place and said, "Forget it. We can't help you." So they paid the Hells Angels $500 worth of beer, and their job was to sit around the stage and block people from getting onto it. And of course, things escalated, and an 18-year-old kid whose name was Meredith, who was high on methamphetamines, tried to fight one of the Hells Angels and pulled out a gun, and then he got stabbed to death by the Hells Angels. Also, 2 people were killed by hit and runs that weekend, and 1 person fell into a drainage ditch and drowned.
So what you're saying is only a Hells Angel can bring a knife to a gunfight. That's all I got from what you just said.
Yes.
Yeah.
Only a Hells Angel can bring a knife to a gunfight. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there was a number of fights in the crowd. The Grateful Dead, who had played a huge role in planning this whole thing. It was mainly a Rolling Stones initiative, but the Grateful Dead had played a huge role in planning this. They didn't even get to play. They refused to play once they heard that somebody else had been punched in the head by an audience member. Mm-hmm. They just got on their helicopter and went away. And then, so the Stones, there's a big gap of time. There's nobody around. Nobody's playing. And the Stones were late going on. They wanted to wait till sundown. So the movie looked better. By the time they got on, there was fights going through the crowd. Everything was it was haywire.
Yeah, it was a shitstorm, if I can say that on the radio.
I don't know. We don't really have a language policy at NewbsRadio.
Sorry,
300,000 people showed up in the end. Yeah.
I didn't realize that there was that many people there. I was thinking, I've been to a speedway to see a show.
Yeah.
I went to Warped Tour. There was definitely not 300,000 people there, but I can imagine.
It was the 60s. It was free.
Yeah.
And and people were pretty pumped. Woodstock had just happened in the East.
Right.
And everyone was keen to celebrate the Summer of Love.
It's hard to have
together.
a love
I don't know
in
if it was called the Summer of
speedway.
Love at the time. Or did we call it that after?
Well, it might have been. I mean, that was December, so they could have said, "Remember last summer, man? That was lovely."
That was the Summer of Love.
Yeah.
But it was a killer lineup. They had Santana, Jefferson Airplane, the Flying Burrito Brothers, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, the Stones, and then of course the Dead were scheduled, but they skipped town just in time.
Yeah. And good on them.
Good on them.
Yeah.
Way to go, Dead.
Way to go down with
Not
the ship,
only
guys.
can they really jam out a tune,
They can jam out of a situation.
Oh.
You like that?
Zing.
Zinger. So where are we going with this? What is the... we're heading back to the Rolling Stones, so we're going to go somewhere else.
Well,
Where
we're
are we
heading
gonna
back to Altamont.
Altamont.
Is the idea. So
All right,
we're going
I
to
forgot
go.
what we're doing.
The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go through the Flying Burrito Brothers, who played early on in the day. But the Flying Burrito Brothers, their first record's fantastic. Their lead singer, Graham Parsons, pretty hilarious character. He was zany. He was friends with Keith Richards. They were roommates for a while. I think Graham Parsons actually introduced Keith Richards to the institution of country music.
Yeah.
Blew his mind. All he was doing was listening to that boring old American blues, and then
Boom.
Graham Parsons come along, teaches him about
Honky-tonk and...
yeah, but he started drinking a lot and taking a lot of drugs. His favorite place in the world was the Joshua Tree National Park.
Mm-hmm.
And they said he would go there and take a bunch of acid or mushrooms and wander around for days looking for evidence of UFOs. Which...
Is that for real? Yeah.
This is what I hear.
Okay.
And that in the end, that he died out in the middle of the desert.
Right. They stole... the story is they took his body...
Eventually, yeah.
Yeah. And put it out there. Yeah.
So that he died in the desert. He was found, I think it was an opiate and alcohol kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Maybe he did find the aliens.
Maybe.
And they wouldn't let him come back. But yes, he had, a few days before, at a funeral for somebody else, he was really drunk, and he told his road manager that he would like to be cremated in the desert and have his ashes strewn about. So they went to the airport when his coffin was being shipped back to Louisiana, where his father wanted him buried, and they stole it. They drove out into the middle of the desert. They filled the entire coffin up with gasoline and threw a match onto it, which just caused a giant explosion. And then the cops came, and Graham Parsons is on fire in the desert, and the cops are chasing after his road manager and his friend. Mm-hmm. And their story was that they were unencumbered by sobriety. And the cops, being sober, couldn't figure them out, and they ran away. They got arrested a few days later, but it turns out stealing a dead body, not actually a crime.
Really?
Not at the time and the place. So they got charged $750 to replace the coffin that they stole. But the stealing a dead body in California...
At the time.
That's
got to be a crime now.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing, the things that make things crimes.
So we got the Flying Burrito Brothers.
We got the Flying Burrito Brothers. That was an aside. But the Flying Burrito Brothers, that day they played that show. They had a pedal steel player named Sneaky Pete.
Refresh my memory, but he's been in a couple bands, beyond the Flying Burrito Brothers.
Yeah, he was. He has played. Oh, the list of people that whose records he's played on. This is where it gets fun to go to a guy like Sneaky Pete. World of possibilities for your map world. But he's played with Joan Baez, he played with Jackson Brown, George Harrison, Joni Mitchell, John Cale, Leonard Cohen, Fleetwood Mac, Gordon Lightfoot, Ringo Starr, and
as far as Noobs Radio goes, this is a guy who's like a nice diving board.
It's a veritable gold mine.
Jump into a pool and just reach for something. You're gonna find somebody like Fleetwood Mac.
And I reached for Star Wars.
Star Wars. What?
And I got it.
Okay, how did you reach for Star Wars? I don't know what's going on, by the way. David's done all this himself.
Yes. Well, before Sneaky Pete was in any bands, he worked in the film industry. Mostly, he was a special effects guy, mostly on television, really advanced stuff. He was working on really cutting-edge projects like Gumby and the Davy and Goliath show. That kind of, really pushing the boundaries of the human visual experience. But he would hang out at the bars in the nighttime, and he would play pedal steel guitar, so he would just jam out. That's where he caught the attention of Graham Parsons, and I think was it Phil Hillman? Chris Hillman, who were both of those guys were in the Byrds at the time. When they decided to bail on the Byrds, they hired they brought little Sneaky Pete along and made the Flying Burrito Brothers. Then Pete has his whole career in the music industry, and then he goes back to films. He starts doing some special effects for some crazy films. Gremlins, again, just really.
That was a great movie.
How do they make the animals move around? Look so real. He worked on the Terminator movies, and then the crown, the jewel in his crown, was working on The Empire Strikes Back.
Empire Strikes Back, yeah. So they have this really kick-ass slide guy working in special effects for Lucas, I guess, at the time, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if they knew. I wonder if they had any idea who he was, on a day-to-day, like.
Well, I think the Burrito Brothers were dead by then.
Yeah.
But I wonder if they knew about Gumby. I think
you got to come from somewhere in any business, whether it's Gumby or
or the Birds.
Yeah.
The Eagles. Yeah. Okay. Well, Star Wars. I'm going to pass this one over to you. Tell me about The Empire Strikes Back. It's been a long time.
Empire Strikes Back, easily the best in the series.
That's interesting because it was the lowest grossing Star Wars film in the history of the franchise. Well,
if you go to Rotten Tomatoes and take a look at the rating, you'll see that it has the highest out of all 6. And the reason is, it's start to finish, it is a great story. It in itself could be just one movie, and it would tell a story. It has 3 acts. It ends with like this, what's going to happen. It sets it up for the Return of the Jedi, but also it's just a great blueprint for any movie. Any great movie follows what Empire had going for it.
And there was I was discovering today that there was a lot of that was actually by accident. Like they froze
Han Solo
in carbonite,
yeah,
because Harrison Ford hadn't signed on for the 3rd movie.
Really?
Yeah. They didn't know if he was going to be around. Apparently, he had actually tried to convince George Lucas to kill off his character because he was like, I'm played out, man.
Right. Like, and by that time, he had already done, 2 Indiana Joneses, right?
He was rising.
Yeah, he was
on a straight line to The Fugitive.
Okay, so Sneaky Pete worked on Empire Strikes Back. Mm-hmm. Empire Strikes Back, great movie. If you haven't seen it, go out and see it.
Go now.
Netflix.
Then another zany thing I heard about it was that during the asteroid scene, one of the asteroids is a potato, and one of the asteroids is a shoe.
I've seen the shoe. I swear to you, I've seen, and I was like, that looks like a shoe, but I never.
Yeah, this was that Lucas made them recut the asteroid scene so many times that the special effects guys, possibly even Sneaky Pete himself, put their shoe in.
That would be rather sneaky.
Oh, maybe that's where he got the name. There's no reference. I couldn't find out where Sneaky Pete got his name.
He threw a sneaker in there. It just makes so much sense. It's a signature move. Who throws a shoe?
Really?
Honestly.
Okay, so epic, wonderful soundtrack. Empire Strikes Back, the whole Star Wars trilogy, ranked by the American film industry to be the greatest American movie soundtrack in history. Done by
rightfully so.
John Williams.
Who
has 3 of the top of 15
Theatrical.
According to the American Film Association, 3 out of the top 15 greatest American film scores ever are by this guy.
Yeah, just amazing. He also did Indiana Jones. It's kind of weird how Lucas really clung to these people for you know, his rise to the top.
Yes.
He used John Williams, he used Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
You know.
Just went with it. John Williams also did Jaws and Superman, Indiana Jones, like you said, E.T., Jurassic Park, Hook, Home Alone. Schindler's List, and 3 of the Harry Potters, 4 Olympics. He's written the music for 4 Olympics. He's got 21 Grammys, second only to Walt Disney himself.
Walt Disney got Grammys? What did he do?
I don't know.
Honestly, what did that guy do?
Theme parks.
I mean, by the time
he won, he won the award for best theme park.
That's
22 years running.
That's a Grammy.
Yeah,
best theme park.
Best theme park.
And best theme park goes to Walt Disney again. Oh,
22nd year.
No one's tried to.
It had to be the only.
He's up against himself in that category. What, like Euro Disney?
Yeah. What Disneyland?
Yeah. That confuses me, but I'll believe you. Grammy, that's for music, right? We're talking music. Walt Disney.
Yeah.
Okay. The guy's a music writer. Didn't know.
I hope I have my facts right here.
Maybe
I'm talking Academy Awards.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, because John Williams would get those.
Yeah.
Probably more so than Grammys, but
who even knows?
Let's just, you know what? Let's just say John
Walt
Williams,
Disney,
hell of a guy. He's a hell of a guy with a hell of a vision.
And he took this vision to the Boston Pops Orchestra. All right. Yes, we were going Boston Pops. Boston Orchestra in Boston.
What is how does that?
John Williams went from the movies into conducting. He conducted
things. Say it. He conducted things. Tell me he conducted things. Please.
He conducted the Boston Orchestra from 1980 to 1993, and he remains the conductor laureate there at the Boston Pops Orchestra, I think it's called.
You can stick laureate on the end of anything, and it sounds pretty classy.
Conductor laureate. So he...
Cabbage laureate.
Yes. Cabbage laureate. Now, he's still affiliated with these guys. Super Bowl 36 happens to be in Boston. They need to have something to open the show, so they call the Boston Pops Orchestra. Boston Pops Orchestra opens the show.
Right.
Halftime show? Who is it?
Gosh, Super Bowl 46?
Maybe.
Yeah. Super Bowl 46. Let's see who's big then. That would have been U2, I'm guessing.
It was U2.
Was it?
It was U2.
Wow.
Way to go.
Thank you.
Drum roll.
Terry. Looking good over there, buddy. Hey, should we do a call to action?
Oh, yeah, let's do a call to action. Terry? What are we calling people to act on?
Oh, yeah, this is a call to action for the Facebook page. You can like us on Facebook. Go to NewbsRadio.com. Go to the bottom. You'll see a little bar. You can tweet this. You can follow us. You can like us. All those things. Just a click away on NewbsRadio.com.
Okay. U2, tail end of their Elevation tour, arguably the moment that you can look back on in history and say, this is the very last time these guys weren't embarrassingly terrible.
Really? Mm-hmm. You think they're embarrassingly terrible?
How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb?
Was that was the album that came out?
No, this was everything.
Everything you can't leave
all
behind.
That you can't leave behind, which I thought was a stand-up album for
That's
a bunch of people in there.
That's the last U2 record I purchased.
Yes. And their Elevation tour was over. They were going back to the studio.
Yeah.
And they turded out How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb.
Turded out.
And we'll put up a link. I'll try to find Can we put up links? Is that something we can do? I heard them say that on the CBC.
Yeah,
we'll put a link to it on our website. There's a really nice article written. I forget exactly what year it was. Maybe we'll say 2003. Is that around when that right?
Yeah, sure.
There's a guy who wrote a really good, a music journalist who wrote a really good article called The Worst 14 Songs of 2003.
And it was that record.
He just listed every song off of How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb and tore them to shreds. Spent like the proper time listening and destroying it. So that moment there, anybody who was at that Super Bowl saw U2 before everything just went straight down the shitter.
I don't know.
But then there's bands that go all like the Rolling Stones. I think they shouldn't pack it in. Still a great band.
Yeah, I think that also too, like the Stones have been, you know, if you go to a Rolling Stones concert now, you're gonna hear mostly old stuff.
Right.
You know, they're playing the old stuff. It's not like Bowie, where Bowie would tour for years and he would only play his new stuff.
Yeah.
But whereas U2 seems to be like in that kind of, they're playing the hits, but they're also they really want to sell their new record.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't think the Stones really do that anymore.
No, they haven't done a record in a while.
Yeah, they're not dropping singles, they're not putting out records, but they're touring, and so maybe that's what U2 should do. You know, people will still go see them. They'll still sell merch.
They should just become a jukebox.
They could. And you know what? To be honest, I'd go see U2 again. I saw them once.
Yeah,
it was good.
Good show.
Yeah, they were on a good show. I saw them in Edmonton at the football stadium there, Commonwealth. Outdoor show, Pop Mart tour.
Oh, legendary.
Not a highlight of their career for sure. I'd rather see them, any other tour. I think the next
I thought
tour.
Pop was fantastic.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, personally. But anyways.
Yeah, I thought Pop. Was it called Pop? Yeah,
it was called Pop.
I thought that it was not good. But it was better than Zooropa. I thought Zooropa was a piece of dog.
Bummer.
Terry. Nice job, buddy. Way to save me. We'll just put something in post there.
Zooropa was a great album. But those albums, in fact, are not the ones that most of U2's records Brian Eno has had a hand in. I don't believe he had a hand in Pop. And I don't know how involved he was in Zooropa. I don't think he was around. But pretty much every other record from Joshua Tree onwards, we're talking Brian Eno produced.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder what prompted that.
Cash, I think.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Lanois was involved though.
Yeah. Eno brought Lanois in. That was they were teamed up together at that point in time, doing their thing, and have spent that's been the creative team. I think on the new record they finally gave Eno and Lanois songwriting credits as well, because they were like, you pretty much been the band since we got good. Yeah. So here's
keeping it consistent.
Mm-hmm. And so we're gonna go to Eno now. This is where we're going.
Eno.
We're going
Love
to Eno. Eno is a zany guy.
I was just listening to his old band. What are they called again? Who are they? Love is the Drug.
Yeah.
Jamming out Love is the Drug yesterday.
Why can't we? We're gonna have to cut out Roxy Music.
Roxy Music. Yeah.
We can cut out.
I love that song. I mean,
Roxy Music.
Okay, let's just go.
Okay. Roxy Music.
Roxy Music, such a great band. Was listening to them this morning. Great band. Great guys. Love ya.
Great guys,
RoxyMusic.com.
/awesome.
Don't go to there. Go to NewbsRadio.com, actually, for all your Roxy Music needs.
So, Eno in, I guess it would have been, say, somewhere around 1995, was working on a record of his. He was creatively stagnant, he said. He got a call from Microsoft, who was like, we have invented the greatest operating system
ever. At the time.
That was their claim. And they needed a startup sound. So they sent Eno a little message, and they said they gave him a list of what it needed to be. They were like, we want a startup sound, we want it to be powerful, it needs to have vision, it needs to be futuristic, it needs to be confident, it needs to be calming, and they gave him this list of adjectives that it needed to be, and then they said, oh yeah, and it needs to be 3 3/4 seconds long.
Now, why do you think it had to be 3 3/4 seconds?
Maybe that's how much time they had allotted for it.
I guess.
Maybe there was
Would they have thought that through that precisely? You know, like what if it was
Bill
only
Gates
3
himself?
Seconds? What if
it was like 3 3/4 seconds?
3 3/4.
I won't go any further, any less far.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And apparently it snapped Eno's brain into nanoseconds. Said he made 84 different ones.
Right. 84 separate 3 3/4 second sounds. And they went with Terry. Terry's great. Terry can play keyboard sounds as well on his drums.
So that was Eno. He did it. And he said it, having to zone in so close and be thinking in nanoseconds actually broke him out of his own sort of creative slump.
Yeah.
And once he went back to working on 3.5 minute long songs, he said he felt like he had an ocean of space and things went moving along for him. And I imagine you probably get paid quite well when you're...
That's got to be one of the many tricks that these guys will do. I know, going back to Bowie, what Bowie would do is he would pull random words out of hats when he was trying to write lyrics. But yeah, hyper minimizing your creative scope to just over 3 seconds and then doing 84 of them. I mean, that is a lot of work. You don't realize that, I don't think, how much work went into that Microsoft sound.
Yeah, absolutely. And Eno's into that kind of zany minimalism as well. He has a strategy in the studio called Oblique Strategies.
Right.
It's a deck of cards that he made, 101 worthwhile dilemmas. And when you're having a problem in the studio, you just draw a card and it will say something really bizarre and cryptic, like, stop trying to go through the sound, maybe you need to go around it. Things like that. And that'll break people out of their... I guess their own sort of creative walls.
Excellent.
Eno, are we through Eno?
I could talk about Eno for days, but we don't have that kind of time.
We don't have...
I'll hold the stopwatch.
So we've gone from Eno to Windows 95.
Windows 95.
We're at Windows 95.
That must be a block. There's no way we can get past Windows 95. There's no way in hell
we can get past Windows 95 to Altamont.
No, it won't happen.
It so
I'm
happens.
leaving. I'm out of here, man. You're crazy.
You're leaving. Well, I'm going to finish the show on my own and let you know that before you go anywhere, Eric. As far as I can tell, Windows 95 was like every other operating system before, but it had a start button. And they wanted to find a jingle. And they were flipping back through, the archives of music, and they found Start Me Up by the Rolling Stones.
Now I see where you're going with this.
Yes.
Very impressive.
And that song itself apparently had been... I've got this written down here somewhere because it's such a zany thing. They tried to record that song over 50 times. It came out in 1981, the year I was born.
That was on Tattoo You.
That was on Tattoo You.
Ah.
Fantastic stuff. And that was actually a compilation of studio rejects that was put together because the band wasn't really talking to each other at the time, but they were about to go on tour and they needed a record, so their management team sort of dragged together what they could find. And apparently Start Me Up had been a reggae song they'd been jamming on. They had tried to start recording it in 1975. They attempted it for Black and Blue, for Some Girls, and for Emotional Rescue. Recorded over 50 reggae versions of the song and 2 rock versions. And the manager found one of the rock versions, Start Me Up, that went on the album. And the other one, for some reason, Mick Jagger had said, Start It Up. Microsoft finds out. They buy the song. They attach it to Windows 95. And it's the first time in history that the Rolling Stones let another company use one of their songs to sell its stuff.
Was it? Mm-hmm. Wow, that's late.
Yeah.
Wasn't the first instance of popular rock and roll being used in a commercial sense? Was it Reebok using "Revolution" by the Beatles after Michael Jackson bought the publishing rights to the Beatles catalog, and then I think was that?
I don't know if it was the first instance of
that really
a song being used commercially, but it was the first instance of Paul McCartney ever saying something intelligent. And
zing!
Yeah, he had a whole little press statement, and he was like, you know what? Michael says it's all about the business, and I think sometimes it's not about the business. This song was something and Paul McCartney, clearly not of the very revolutionary mindset, but he said, you know, this was a song about a time and a place and a thing that was happening, and that had nothing to do with shoes.
Right.
And he was quite upset about it.
Yeah.
Ruined their friendship. Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson were actually quite close before that. They'd had a couple of great hits together.
Say.
The Girl Is Mine as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Good tunes, man.
That's too bad. Do you think Michael maybe was a little sorry about that whole thing? Do you ever?
I don't think so, no.
No? He just kept going?
Kept going.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, ultimately, you know, probably Paul McCartney is a tough guy to hang around anyway.
Yeah?
Yeah.
He's always buying you
he
stuff.
Probably was trying to piss off Paul McCartney so he would stop calling. We found the Rolling Stones via Windows 95. So the Rolling Stones, of course, were the brains behind the Altamont Speedway Music Festival, December 6, 1969. Symbolic end of the Summer of Love. Death of a guy named Meredith who was high on methamphetamines.
Yeah.
But 4 people died at the festival, but 4 babies were also born. It says something about 1969 that 4 people who were imminently pregnant would head to a field full of 300,000 people and just figure everything would be all right.
Yeah.
So even Stevens. Oh, before we sign off here, maybe we should just do a little recap on how we got from Altamont to Altamont today. So we started with the concert at the Altamont Speedway, December 6th, 1969. And from there, we went to one of the bands who played early in the day, the Flying Burrito Brothers.
Burritos were flying as Sneaky Pete Kleinow played the slide.
Sneaky Pete Kleinow, of course, was a special effects man on The Empire Strikes Back,
which was soundtracked, composed the music, Mr. John Williams.
Conductor for 13 years of the Boston Pops Orchestra, still the laureate conductor, and those guys did the halftime show at Super Bowl 46.
Super Bowl 46 played halftime show U2.
U2 often works with Brian Eno.
Brian Eno. What is it? Oh yeah. Okay, sorry. Brian Eno. I can't say his last name. Brian Eno. This isn't working.
Okay.
Why don't you take Brian Eno?
Brian Eno, among his many accomplishments, invented the 3 3/4 second long Windows 95 startup sound.
Rolling Stones' Start Me Up was used for the marketing campaign for Windows 95.
Rolling Stones were the brains behind the Altamont Music Festival, which ended the Summer of Love, December 6th, 1969.